Hello, welcome to another tonalist landscape oil painting demonstration. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and the painting I'm bringing you today is a study after Camille Corot called Les Torrents Pierreux, something like that. I don't speak such great French, but I think that's about right. And what's funny is I'm painting it. I saw this little bit down on the lower right-hand side, and I thought, well, it's light colored. I didn't really spot it as a river, a torrent, which fortunately I was looking at at the close of the painting, and I go, oh, that's a river. Yeah, so I beefed it up a little, made it a little lighter and brighter. But you can see me working with the reference there, and I'm going to zoom in 1 minute. Just there you go. It makes for a little better video, but a lot of times in the members area, which you can join by clicking the link underneath this video. Now, I think some people on phones may be having some issues with that. Um, with joining the members area with the link below the video. It's the only link I can find, so if you're having some difficulty, use Chrome, the Chrome browser on a computer like a Mac or a PC. Hopefully things will go alright, and if they don't, let me know, and I'll try to help you best as I can. Anyway, in the members area videos, generally I'll talk a bit about what I'm going to do prior to getting into the drawing. And you saw like a little slice of that here, just kind of sped up. I wanted to do a Camille Corot. I've had a lot of comments on Camille Corot videos recently. That's my kitty. He's going a little senile, a little doolally. Still eating though, so we'll just put up with it. And it got me thinking, oh, it's been a while since I did a Camille Corot, so I dug around in my folder of tonalist images and picked out this Corot, and I think I may have painted it once before. Maybe back in the 100 Days of Tonalism as a 5x7. Not positive about that, but it's a nice little composition, and Corot is a master of composition. Now, before we go too much further, you might go, whoa, I thought you said tonalist. How is he a tonalist? Well, he's not. Frankly, he's a Barbizon painter. He's pretty much the Barbizon painter. And one of the best landscape painters that ever lived, for sure. A tremendous influence on so many. I think George Ness definitely was one of the people that you can see as an influence on George Ness, especially before and after Ness's first trip to Europe. You're coming back with a guy that suddenly went from, Hudson River School, we can see every leaf kind of thing, to soft edges in his trees. And this is one of the distinguishing things about Corot. When I think about Corot, I think about his trees, and I think about his edges and how he got the air into the edges, and now I have been fortunate enough to see quite a few Corots in real life. My trip to Paris back in 2014 or so, I was at the Louvre. They have quite a few Corots there, and you could see that he got his effect a bit differently than I do. My impression of him, lots of small strokes overlapping each other, and they look to be done with some sort of sable brush, just my guess. But that's how he got that airy quality. The technique I use is more where I'm doing modulations of intermediate colors and things like that. And also I've got my patented edge dragging. Well, I have many strategies for edges. And again, in the members area, you'll often hear me say, oh, I've 1,000,001 strategies for how I approach edges. Everything from running a swab over an edge to pulling in one color into the next, or just painting an intermediate series of colors, or dragging the brush one way or another. There's a lot of different things you can do. But Camille is a great guy to really, I have to say, when you're talking about edges, the biggest challenge in painting, I think, is, well, there's so many actually, but one of the biggest challenges. Let's say that, because I think composition might be the biggest challenge, but edges is way up there, and getting good edges is definitely separates the pros from the amateurs. No question about that. Um, and try doing some studies after Corot. I mean, just trying to bend your head to what he did will improve your edges immensely, because he was a master of it. He was also a master of composition. His compositions are amazing. Now, I grabbed a Corot book to try and give you some biographical information about him, but it really was going nowhere, so I abandoned that. But it did mention in his day, and he lived to be quite old. So he started painting in the early 1800s, and he lived to be in his 80s. So he was painting well past the time the Impressionists were showing their work, and he was really considered the grandfather of Impressionism, mostly because he brought an abstract quality to the landscape. Also, his ability to infuse his paintings with this sort of soft, gauzy quality, abstract quality, that predates Impressionism by quite a lot. However, he was not an Impressionist. He did not paint in an Impressionist manner. He painted more in a traditional manner, but he was an innovator, no question about it, if not one of the greatest innovators of landscape painting ever. I put him up there with George Inness, all the more so because he was, I think, a direct influence on Inness, and one of the people that made Inness much better after having seen his work. And that's the great thing about art and being able to experience it and see the work of others. You know, you can use it as a way to transcend your own limitations a lot of times, okay? And people will have come up with solutions and ideas that you might not have reckoned with. Now, one place where I think he deviates from the tonalist, and actually where I'm more in line with him, is he liked to paint on top of brown, and I'm a big believer in that as well. Or a lot of, at least I've read that from Burge Harrison, from his book Landscape Painting, which, by the way, sidebar, is one of the few books that really even discusses toneless painting techniques. According to Burge Harrison, one of the major innovations of tonalism was working on red instead of brown. However, I've got good results on brown. It's a reddish brown though, so maybe, who knows? I don't know what exact color Camille painted on, because we don't have access to any videos of him doing any work, you know. So I'm the closest you're going to get, and what I'm doing is just a facsimile of Corot. It's not, you know, it's not exactly like Corot, and that would ever be my intention. In fact, one thing I left out, that group of rocks right up in the straight, exactly in the middle, had a little figure on it, a nice little figure too. I think at one point, if you pay attention to the underpainting / drawing stage of this painting, you'll see me put it in, but I decided to bail on it. It just would have been too fiddly, and I'm not really into fiddly. I don't want to be fiddly. And even when I'm making studies after masters, I avoid being fiddly. I go for, I'll tell you exactly what my approach is, and I recommend you take this on board yourself if you're going to start doing some studies. And that is to treat your painting after a master like a cover tune. You know, the original artist is always going to be the original artist, but some cover tunes can be even better than the originals that they cover, right? So that's my mindset, and I have not heard any other artist really explain it that way. I'm sure they're out there. I mean, I'm not all knowing. Heck, I don't even look at that many other artists' videos, right? Anyway, I don't really know how Camille worked, whether he did like an underpainting / drawing like I do, or whether he just went in and started blocking in things in big colorful shapes. You know, there's a lot of different ways you can start. In fact, you know, people that are real intellectual or towers of painting, like Richard Schmidt. He's got 7 different ways he might start a painting. I really have just one. I do my board prep. I do a drawing / underpainting, and then I go in with my color. Sometimes, as in this day, I did the drawing in the morning and then came in and did the color at night. And that's another thing I might point out. Members area has the color mixing session included. I don't do that in the 15-minute videos because it's just going to be sped up and you're not going to hear anything I was saying in real time anyway. I'd have to sit there and go, you know, like that. So, well, but that's one of the benefits of being a member. Although, if you're just a subscriber, I love you dearly, and I'm happy to help. I'm happy to impart as much information as I can. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, especially we're kind of into these greens, grays. Corot's greens were always sort of gray, and so they weren't strident at all. They were never that vivid. So my strategies there was to start with my basic Mike's green a lot of times, which is acrylide yellow mixed with black, ivory black. And from there, in this case, in some cases I added actual gray, which would be a gray mixed from white and ivory black. I would throw in a raw umber. I would throw in a dulling sort of color, which would be like yellow ochre. I think I leaned on quite a lot of yellow ochre here. Also, I had raw sienna on my palette for this painting, which I've ended up employing quite a lot in the edges, you know. So I had this sort of warm edges. And anyway, I'm varying the greens. I'm changing them. Oh, you know, another color, like in the shadows, I would throw a lot of like alizarin crimson into the greens. So these colors can tamp down the greens. Another thing I want to point out is, like, generally if you look at my own stuff, I like a little more contrast than Corot was going with in this painting. He only had a few areas that were really quite dark. And I tend to favor areas with, you know, a bit more dark, a bit real dark. But in this case, I just went with a lot of these intermediate darks, which in a lot of cases I created, like with, say, burn umber, maybe a little, maybe added a little bit of yellow ochre to kind of get a sort of greeny feel in some cases. And also with kind of a sketchy quality. So in the shadow or darker areas of this painting, you'll see quite a lot of board color coming through. I worked a lot more transparently in the shadow areas. And you know, that's a thing, if you weren't aware of that, shadow areas is the place to work more transparently. The lighter something is, generally the more opaque it is, yeah. But I tried to keep a sort of light, kind of almost scrubby technique throughout this painting, and I'll change it up. Sometimes I have a bunch of different approaches to brushwork, but here I did kind of this sort of scrubby up-down motion or side-to-side motion quite a lot. Yeah, and here you can see I'm painting in the torrent, the rapids, which I didn't recognize as rapids. I thought I was just painting a light area of the landscape, so it made so much more sense when I read that. And no, it's good we did. It's good we read it. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with this study after Camille. You know, and mental note to self, do some more, you know. I know they're always pretty popular on the channel, as are the studies after Ines and you know, John Francis Murphy, and Charles Warren Eaton. I haven't done a Warren Eaton in a long time, but Charles Warren Eaton, I love him dearly, but I think I get a lot more from doing the Ines studies or even the Corot studies than I do off of Eaton. Murphy just has a lot less work up on the internet, you know. Anyway, I can see we're getting pretty close to the end of this video, and I really appreciate you joining me today. I hope you're having a really great new year, and I hope you're getting some good painting done. If you're not, please, after you turn off this video, can you just turn off the computer and go get your paints out and your canvas or a board and just do a painting, all right? And you know, I'll be back here next week. You can come watch another one next week. That'd be great. And until that time, do me a favor, do me a solid. Take good care of yourself, your family, all your loved ones. And, you know, let's try and love our enemies too. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to do. And be tolerant of people that have differing opinions. And until I come back with another video, do me a favor, do me a solid. Take good care of yourself, your family, your loved ones. Stay out of trouble, and God bless you and your family.